Hi everyone. I'm always looking for ways to make practicing more efficient and to counteract some of mine and my students' tendencies in specific passages. Sometimes that has to do with air, sometimes it has to do with movement, sometimes it just has to do with breaking up a pattern to make it a little more compelling so that I can remain engaged in the material. And still make progress. So I have a couple of spots to share with you in this short video. Today I'm going to talk about Ernesto Köhler's Opus 88 Etudes. This one is number 12, which is for the Etude of the week, this week. The very opening section, I'd like to ask that you experiment with changing your physical choreography and see if you get a slightly different vibrancy to your sound. So for example, if I play the opening, I kind of followed the shape of the line. What if I do the opposite? In other words, going down as the line goes up and then gradually going back up. So you can do this with just your flute. You could also do this by moving your knees, bending your knees down. So you could also try an alternate version of leaning backwards. Same with that ending. If you experiment moving the end of your flute down, just see if that helps you. If you're having issues getting those high notes, that often will help me pop out those high notes. Another practice technique that I use would come into play in measure 37 in this example, and that would be singing and playing. And I have my warm-ups that I mentioned. This one's number 3 of my warm-up series. Number 1 was called anti-gravity playing, what we just did. And number 3 of that series is singing and playing. So in measure 37, the leaps can be pretty challenging. And if you experiment just 2 measures at a time, humming a low note, and then playing it, let me know if that helps with omitting the high notes and going through these huge leaps. I find that often is helpful in passages that have wide leaps. The last section, I'm going to do a couple different things to break down the section for you. This one is in a warm-up that hasn't even come out yet, warm-up number 5 of my series, but this one would be switching your fingers ahead of time to the note you're about to play. I call this exercise anticipation. And this one I'm going to use in measure 101, which is I think the beginning of one of the most challenging passages. And I came up with quite a few ideas of how to practice this in interesting ways that will help you efficiently tackle this last section of this piece. So in this case, you play the first note, switch to the A, switch to the F. So you're always switching ahead. Even on the notes, you'll notice that there is a section where there's octaves, so you do not have a fingering change, and that's actually what, in my estimation, makes this particular passage so challenging, is it lulls you into going back and forth to an A, and then it breaks the pattern. So analyzing patterns and coming up with ways to think of them in new ways is a really excellent way to save time while you're practicing. Another one that a lot of you have probably done would be rhythms. So that would be long, short, and then short, long. You could do this through the entire passage, especially the second section of the passage as the leaps get even wider. Another idea would be omitting the very last 16th note of each measure. So that can kind of make you rethink the passage in a different way. And then I would also advocate for omitting the second 16th, which would give you an 8th note at the beginning. that's another idea. A lot of times I also will change the slurring to change my perspective of a passage. So one slur that I would say would work well here to kind of problem solve that spot I mentioned on beat 2 of measure 102, where it breaks the pattern of going back to an A and changes to go to a C. You could practice tonguing the first note and then slurring into the next downbeat. So that would help you. The octave there is in a slightly spot where you don't expect it, and that really brings that out. And then the last one would be slurring in 4s over the measures. So you're kind of now breaking things into 2 measure groupings. And again, that also emphasizes beat 2 of the measures that have a little change to the pattern. Thank you so much for listening.